Lift the lid off your toilet tank. Go ahead and do it right now, or at least think about the last time you did. What you find in there is not what you expect when you first move into a house. The water is supposed to be clear, pristine, and fresh. The walls of that tank are supposed to be white or off-white porcelain, clean and smooth. But what most people find, and what they quietly close the lid on and try to forget, is a dark ring of slime running along the waterline. Patches of rust orange or brown streaking down the sides, and a smell that is not quite right. Not quite dirty, not quite clean. It just feels off, not right at all. That smell tells you something is living in that tank. And it is growing right there in the dark. The blue dye makes the water look clean. Bacteria, mold spores, mineral deposits layering themselves over time, and a thin film of organic matter that no amount of the blue tablet dissolving in the water is going to touch. It does not make the tank clean. Those two things are not the same, and the difference matters. The fix costs $1.50 at most grocery stores or any hardware store. One small standard brown bottle of hydrogen peroxide. You probably walked past it 100 times in the first aid aisle without ever thinking to bring it into the bathroom. Stay with me, because the part about bleach especially is something I want you to understand before you reach for it again. My name is Annie Hemingway. What it does to that tank and why it works when vinegar falls short and bleach creates a different problem entirely is going to make you a little frustrated that nobody mentioned it sooner. I watched her do it. I learned what she used and why she used it, and I have been doing the same thing in my own home for going on 53 years. Hydrogen peroxide was one of those things. For most of my life, I kept a farmhouse in the Blue Ridge Mountains running on almost nothing. No store cleaners, no specialty products, no monthly subscription boxes of little tablets and pods and sprays that promise to do what plain materials have always done better. Not for cuts and scrapes alone, though she kept it for that too, but for places in the home where something invisible was growing and needed to be stopped. The farmhouse I grew up in had one bathroom with plumbing that was already old when I was a girl, and my mother kept it spotless with what she had on hand. That kind of knowledge ought to keep being passed down. It is exactly why I am here. If what you hear today is useful to you, go ahead and hit subscribe. There is a good deal more where this comes from, and none of it is going to cost you much more than what is already sitting in your pantry or your medicine cabinet. Now, one thing I want to ask you before we get into the method. When did you last lift that tank lid and look inside? Not glance at the bowl, look inside the tank itself. Drop your answer in the comments and tell me what you found in there. Was it clear and clean, or did it stop you cold? I read every comment that comes in, and I'm always curious what people find when they finally look. The tank is out of sight. It is behind a lid. Nothing about daily life forces you to look at it, and so it builds up quietly for months or years before anyone pays attention. What is building up is not just dirt. It is a combination of things happening at once. The problem most homeowners have with toilet tank buildup is that they do not know it is there until the smell gets bad enough to notice, or until someone more observant comes to visit and asks what that dark ring is. That is the rust-colored streaking and the pale, crusty buildup you see near the fill valve and along the walls. Layered on top of that, in the damp and the dark with a consistent water temperature, bacteria and mold find exactly the conditions they prefer. They form a film, thin at first, thicker over time, and that film is what produces the smell. The bowl looks fine because the bowl gets flushed constantly and scrubbed regularly. The tank gets neither, so the tank becomes the source and the bowl inherits whatever the tank sends down with every flush. So the tank becomes the source and the bowl inherits whatever the tank sends down with every flush. Hard water carries dissolved minerals, calcium, magnesium, sometimes iron, calcium, and every time water sits in that tank between flushes, those minerals are slowly depositing on every surface. You can scrub that bowl every single day and the smell will come back because you are not addressing where it is coming from. Hydrogen peroxide addresses it directly, not by masking it with chemical scents or air fresheners, not by diluting it with more and more tank water. The two things people reach for when they find something growing in a toilet tank are bleach and white vinegar. Bleach is the instinct. Most people go for it first. It smells clean, it kills bacteria fast, and most people associate it with the kind of serious disinfecting that a slimy tank seems to call for. The trouble is that a toilet tank is full of rubber. The flapper at the bottom, the seal that holds the water until you flush, is rubber. The fill valve gaskets are rubber. The supply line fittings have rubber seals. By breaking it apart at the source, and the reason it does that more effectively than what most people try first, is something worth understanding. Because once you know it, you will never reach for the wrong thing again. Chlorine bleach is hard on rubber. It dries it out, makes it brittle, and over time it causes those parts to crack and fail. Both of them have a place in a well-kept home. I use both, and my mother used both before me. But neither one is the right tool for this particular job, and understanding why will save you from making the problem worse instead of better. A leaking flapper runs your water bill up quietly for months before you notice the constant trickle. When hydrogen peroxide contacts organic matter, bacteria, mold, the film they leave behind, it releases oxygen rapidly. You set out to clean the tank and you end up with a repair bill instead. That is not a trade worth making. Vinegar is gentler, and it has real value for dissolving mineral deposits, the calcium scale and the rust streaking. White vinegar is acidic enough to loosen that crusty buildup near the waterline and around the fill valve, and for that specific purpose it does a decent job. But vinegar does not kill the bacteria and mold that are producing the smell and the dark slime film. It is not an antimicrobial. It can soften and lift the mineral layer without touching what is living underneath it. It can soften and lift the mineral layer without touching what is living underneath it. Hydrogen peroxide does both. It kills the biology and handles the minerals. That is the thing that makes it the right choice for a tank, and it is not complicated science. When hydrogen peroxide contacts organic matter, bacteria, mold, the film they leave behind, it releases oxygen rapidly. That burst of oxygen is what causes the fizzing you will see when you pour it in. The oxygen tears apart the cell walls of microorganisms. It does not just sit on the surface the way a dye or a tablet does. It works into the film and breaks it down. At the same time, hydrogen peroxide is mildly acidic, which means it also helps loosen mineral deposits. One material, two problems addressed. So the tank looks a little better after a vinegar treatment. The hard water staining fades somewhat. But the smell comes back in a few weeks because the biological source was never addressed. Two problems addressed. It handles the biological and the mineral. The bottle you want is standard 3% hydrogen peroxide. That is the kind sold in the brown bottle in the first aid section of any grocery store or pharmacy. It costs between $1 and $2 for a 16-ounce bottle, and that single bottle will treat your tank more than once. Do not go looking for a stronger concentration. The 3% solution is exactly what you need. Stick with the brown bottle from the first aid aisle. Here is the method, exactly as I do it. Start by turning off the water supply to the toilet. The shutoff valve is on the wall behind the toilet, close to the floor, right where the supply line connects. Turn it clockwise until it stops. Then flush the toilet once. And unlike bleach, it breaks down into water and oxygen after it does its work, leaving nothing harmful behind in your tank. That flush empties most of the water out of the tank and leaves you with just a small amount sitting at the very bottom. You want to work with a mostly empty tank, so the hydrogen peroxide is not immediately diluted down to nothing by a full tank of water. Now pour in one full 16-ounce bottle of 3% hydrogen peroxide. You will see it begin to fizz where it contacts the buildup. That fizzing is exactly what you want. The 3% solution is exactly what you need, and the higher concentrations sold for other purposes are not appropriate for this use, and are harder to find safely in a normal store. It means it is working. Do not be alarmed by it and do not try to stop it. Let it sit for 30 minutes. Do not flush. Do not turn the water back on. Just let it work undisturbed for a full half hour. Just let it work undisturbed for a full half hour while you do something else. Set a timer if you need to. That contact time is what allows the oxidation to do its job properly. A quick pour and immediate flush does almost nothing. The sitting time is the treatment. After 30 minutes, turn the water supply back on and let the tank fill completely. Pour it slowly, letting it run down the walls of the tank so it contacts as much surface area as possible, the sides, the bottom, around the base of the fill valve, along the flapper seat. Then flush 2 or 3 times to rinse everything out. The first flush or two may look slightly discolored or foamy depending on how much buildup was present. That is normal. That is the broken down film leaving the tank. By the third flush, the water running into the bowl should be clear. Take the lid off and look inside after those flushes. The walls of the tank will be noticeably cleaner. The dark film along the waterline will be gone or significantly reduced. The smell that was coming from the tank will be gone as well because the source of it has been broken down rather than covered over. That is the whole method. 1 bottle, 30 minutes, 3 flushes. The cost is under $2 and the time is under an hour, including the waiting. I want to be straight with you about what hydrogen peroxide will and will not do in that tank, because that matters more to me than sounding like I am selling you something. It will not remove heavy mineral staining that has been building up for years. If the inside of your tank is coated in a thick layer of rust-colored iron deposits, or pale white calcium scale that is hardened over a long time, the 3% solution will soften the edges of it and help loosen the surface, but it will not dissolve it completely in one treatment. That kind of deep mineral buildup needs something more acidic held against it for longer. And that is actually where white vinegar earns its place, used separately on a day when you are targeting the mineral problem specifically rather than the biological one. The two treatments complement each other. They are just not the same treatment, and hydrogen peroxide alone should not be expected to do the vinegar's job on top of its own. It will not fix a flapper that is already cracked or a fill valve that is already corroding. Understand that those are specifically mechanical problems. If your tank is running, if you can hear a faint trickle of water even when nobody has flushed, that is a flapper or a float issue, and no amount of cleaning will address it. A new flapper costs about $4 at any hardware store and takes 10 minutes to replace. That is a separate repair, and a worthwhile one, because a running toilet can waste hundreds of gallons of water a month without making enough noise to draw attention. It will not hold forever on a single treatment. Nothing will. Wait, let me be clear. Absolutely nothing will. Water is constantly moving through that tank, minerals are constantly depositing, and any moisture-rich dark space will eventually invite biological growth back in if left alone long enough. The goal is not one perfect cleaning, it's about consistency. The goal is a simple repeating habit that keeps the tank clean without letting the buildup ever get bad again. That habit is easy to maintain. 1 bottle of 3% hydrogen peroxide poured into an empty tank and left to sit for 30 minutes, done once a month. That is all it takes. On the first of every month, or the last Sunday, or whatever day you will actually remember, pick a day and make it the day you do the tank. Turn off the valve, flush, pour, wait, refill, flush again. The whole active time is under 10 minutes. The waiting time you can spend doing something else entirely. Set a timer and walk away. If you have more than one toilet in the house, work through them one at a time on the same day. The cost is 1 bottle per toilet, which means 2 toilets cost you $3 a month. 3 toilets cost you $4.50. Spread across a full year, keeping every toilet in the house clean at the tank level costs less than what most people spend on a single canister of those specialty tank tablets, and it does more. Speaking of those tablets, let's look closer. That is the part I want you to sit with for a moment. Walk through any grocery store or big box store and you will find an entire shelf of products dedicated to toilet cleaning. Drop-in tank tablets, that's one option you'll see. And these are clip-on bowl fresheners. Then you have specialty gels like these. And finally, these foaming toilet pods. Automatic flush treatments, they are all over the shelves. The prices run from $4 to $12 for a month's supply, sometimes more for the branded versions with the cheerful packaging. Some of them contain bleach, which, as you now know, is quietly degrading your rubber seals while it makes the water blue. Some of them contain fragrances that mask odors without eliminating their source. Some of them do a reasonable job of keeping the bowl looking clean while doing nothing at all for the tank walls where the actual buildup lives. Not one of them costs less than $1.50. That is the bare minimum. Most of them cost 4 to 8 times that much money. And every single one of them needs to be replaced on a schedule, which means you go back to the store, you buy another one, and the cycle continues month after month without you ever stepping off it. There is no profit in telling you that a brown bottle from the first aid aisle does the job better. The stores do not make money on that advice, no profit there. The cleaning product companies certainly do not. Nobody with a marketing budget and a shelf to fill is going to point you toward a solution that costs under $2 and comes in a plain brown bottle with a white label. That is not how any of that works. And it is not that anyone is trying to deceive you. It is simply that the advice which serves you best is the advice that serves them least, and so it does not get given. My mother understood this without ever putting it in those words. She just knew that what the store sold was always more expensive than what worked, and she had no patience for paying twice for something she could do once with what she already had. Frugality on the mountain was not a personality trait. It was a survival skill that happened to be correct. The women who raised me knew that a clean home did not require a shopping list. It required attention and knowledge, and those two things cost nothing. The knowledge is yours now. That simple, powerful knowledge. What you do with it is up to you. The path is yours. There was an outhouse at the far edge of our property when I was small, the old one still standing from before the farmhouse got indoor plumbing put in. My mother kept it cleaner than some indoor bathrooms I have seen in my life, and she did it with what she had. A bucket, hot water, white vinegar when she had it, and hydrogen peroxide when she did not. She was not particular about which one she used for which job on any given day. She used what worked. She just knew that both of them did real work, that neither of them cost much, and that a clean outhouse in a hot Appalachian summer was not a nicety. It was a health matter for the whole family. When the farmhouse finally had a proper bathroom with a tank toilet, she treated it the same way she had treated everything else. She lifted the lid, she looked inside, she addressed what she found. She did not wait for a smell to tell her something was wrong. She kept it clean the way she kept the root cellar clean, the way she kept the pantry shelves clean, on a schedule, with plain materials, before any problem had a chance to settle in and make itself at home. I think about her when I lift that tank lid now. I see her in that reflection. She would have had no patience at all for a $12 pod dissolving in the water and calling it clean. She would have laughed at it honestly, a warm, knowing laugh. Not unkindly. She was not a harsh woman, but with the particular amusement of someone who knows the simple answer and cannot quite believe people are paying good money to avoid it. That is the knowledge she gave me, passing it forward. And it is the same knowledge I am passing to you today. Take it and use it. So here is what I want you to do this week. Just this one thing. Not next month. Do it this week while it is fresh. This week, before you forget the details and the habit does not form, go to the grocery store or the pharmacy and pick up 1 bottle of 3% hydrogen peroxide for each toilet in your home. You will find it in the first aid aisle in a brown plastic bottle. Look for that sign. It will cost between $1 and $2 per bottle, a true bargain. That is your entire shopping list, simple and easy. When you get home, start with the worst toilet first, the one you suspect has the most buildup or the one that has the smell you have been ignoring. Turn the shutoff valve on the wall behind the toilet clockwise until the water stops. Give it a firm turn. Flush once to empty the tank down to the last inch or two of water at the bottom. Let it drain out. Pour the full 16-ounce bottle of hydrogen peroxide in slowly, letting it run down the interior walls of the tank. Set a timer for 30 minutes and walk away. Let it work its magic. When the timer goes off, turn the shutoff valve back on, let the tank fill completely, and flush 2 or 3 times until the water running through is clear. Then lift the lid and look. Really take a good look at the result. You will see the difference, a clear, noticeable difference. Write the date on the inside of the lid with a permanent marker if you want a simple reminder system. It helps you stay on track. 1 month from that date, you do it again, just once every 30 days. Same steps, same 10 minutes of active work, same 30-minute wait. That is all it takes. That is the whole system. Simple, repeatable, and effective. If you have hard water and you can see the white calcium scale or the rust orange iron staining along the waterline, even after the hydrogen peroxide treatment, plan a separate vinegar treatment for the following week. Pour 2 cups of plain white vinegar into the tank, let it sit for an hour, refill, and flush. Let the acid do the work. The vinegar handles the mineral problem. That is its specialty. The hydrogen peroxide handles the biological one. Together, they cover everything. Alternate them as needed, and between the two of them, you have the tank completely addressed for a total cost of under $3 a month. That is real savings. That is it. Done and dusted. That is the whole thing. A clean tank and peace of mind. If this is the kind of knowledge you want more of, the practical kind, the kind that costs almost nothing and works better than what the store is selling, then go ahead and subscribe. The old methods are worth keeping alive, and there are many more of them to share. I'll be bringing you more soon. And I have one more question for you before I go. Just one more thing. Now that you know what hydrogen peroxide does in the tank, I want to know, is there another spot in your bathroom or anywhere else in your home where you have been fighting a smell or a buildup and nothing you have tried has actually fixed it? Tell me in the comments. I want to hear about your cleaning challenges. Describe the problem and where it is. Let's solve it together. I read every single comment that comes in, and your question might be exactly what the next topic needs to be. I am listening. The next thing I want to show you is what happens when you take that same brown bottle and bring it to your grout lines, the ones in the shower, the ones along the kitchen backsplash, the ones on the bathroom floor that have gone from white to gray to something you would rather not look at too closely. The method is different from what you just learned, and the results are going to stop you cold. It is truly impressive. That is coming up next. Stay tuned for the next guide. My mother used to say that a home tells you what it needs if you pay attention to it. She was always right about that. The tank was telling you something. It's done now. You listened, and that is where the real maintenance begins. That is more than enough to start with. And in this house, starting is always how the real keeping gets done. Thanks for watching.